This is the Gotoku. I'm doing something a bit different today in that I'm talking about a plane that I have never set up before. However, hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have one working very, very nicely. We recently brought in Gotoku from a maker named Tachibana, and they are particularly nice examples with a blue paper steel blade. I'm extremely excited to get them going, and we also have them in the smaller size, which is absolutely delightful, and I've put in my paperwork to adopt one as my legal child. That's a bit much, isn't it? This is the Gotoku. This plane is new to us here at JTA in that we've never stocked one before. However, we have had one floating around the workshop for quite some time. This arrived to us as a second-hand antique tool that Christian bought as a bit of a job lot a little while ago. When we first received it, we looked at it with great bemusement, decided we liked it, didn't know what to do with it, and put it on the shelf. When Takami Kawai Sensei visited from Suikusha Carpentry Company in 2019, we asked him, "What's this for?" And he called it the Almighty. So Christian and I like to refer to this as the Almighty plane between the two of us. And if you would like to make any biblical references to it, you're very welcome to. The reason Takami refers to it as the Almighty is that it does a lot of jobs. And when Greg started doing some joinery here with us, he put it to use, which was very, very exciting. When Yor came and together with Greg taught the tea house course, Yor and Greg from Fujimoto Carpentry Company, we got to use this in that course a little bit, which is very, very exciting. So, what's it for? Well, it's for 5 things. If you're familiar with Japanese kitchen knives, you'll know there's a style called a santoku, which means 3 uses or 3 virtues. The Gotoku simply translates as 5 uses or 5 virtues. And it's probably easiest if I pull apart this joint to show you a few of the things that it can do. So the Kanoatsugi is a scarf joint. It's very, very nicely made. This one, particularly one's by Greg. And you can find these in roof members in many Japanese constructions. However, they do take time to make, and so they do cost more than using a cheaper joint. When you're making one of these joints, having a plane that can do a few different things for you is very, very useful. Enter the Gotoku. So when making this joint, it's really important that these mating surfaces are slightly concave so that the middle of these joints is not going to meet before the edge of these joints. You can do it with a number of different tools, but having the Gotoku means that you can use it to work a big, large, flat area. And that is the first use of the Gotoku, to smooth. As a smoothing plane to take long, fine shavings, it is not ideal, it's not the first choice because it has the body which gets in the way of the escaping shaving. However, if you are tuning joinery and you need to tune down the grain, it is very, very useful and very, very easy to use. The second two uses of the Gotoku, or the second and the third uses of the Gotoku, are to replace or to substitute the use of a kiwakana, or a rebate plane. Japanese rebate planes are generally sold as left and right models, and it is ideal to have both. The reason for that is that depending on your grain direction, you may want to work against a joint going one way or the other, and only having one side of the kiwakana pair means that you can't get into that in both directions. However, the Gotoku is able to, because you have a blade that protrudes out to right or slightly past on this one, the wooden block. So that blade will cut right up to the end of the wooden block, going to the left or going to the right. So there you have a plane that can do the job of 2 others, a left and a right rebate plane. The final use is to replace something like this, which is a side cutting plane that is designed really for use in trenches. So this is not a perfect example, but if you're cutting a trench to carry a shoji screen or a sliding door of any kind, having a side cutting plane to tune the side of your trench is quite useful. However, I can attest these are quite tricky to set up. That is where a Gotoku can also be used to cut the side of a trench. So being able to cut the left side or the right side gives you all the control you need to go with whatever grain direction it's going to ask you to. So you have one plane that does the job of 5 others. A left and a right side cutter, a left and a right rebate plane, and a smoothing plane. To do all of that, it does need to be put together in a certain order of operations. With the Gotoku, it is different to any other Japanese plane that I've seen in that the chip breaker is what pins the blade into the block. Without the chip breaker, the blade will not stay there. So in order to pull this Gotoku apart, I'm going to hit the back of the block, same as any Japanese smoothing plane, in order to reverse the blades back. However, I'm going to reverse the blades back to relieve the pressure the chip breaker is currently exerting on that blade. With the chip breaker exerting pressure, it's not going anywhere. There we go. Hopefully that's loose. There we go. So I now have a loose chip breaker, and this blade is still being held in the block because it is quite tight against the sides. And now I'm going to take my third hand. So I'm removing the chip breaker, getting the chip breaker out of the way so it can't be damaged. So with the main blade removed, we can then pull out the chip breaker. So then I just drop the chip breaker into the position that the main blade used to be and drop it out as well. And there we go, we have the three components of the Gotoku. While these blades are out on the body, we can see that the escapements here on either side of the plane are quite nicely profiled to allow the shavings to escape a little bit easier. And here on the blades, what we can see is that we have two fully hollow ground backs of those blades, two very nice laminations on both the chip breaker and on the main blade. And quite interestingly, this chip breaker is pretty sharp. It's pretty close to being as sharp as the main blade. And in this particular example, that chip breaker is definitely as sharp as the main blade. It doesn't have that flat front face that you often see on the chip breakers of smoothing planes. So in tuning this, I'm going to be lapping the backs of both of these to make sure that they're going to mate perfectly. So a little bit of work there will improve that. And once the backs are flat, I'll be sharpening the bevels. Once the backs and the bevels are sharp, it will be a case of making sure that the sides of the plane and the sides of the blades finish in the same place. So this should be fun, and hopefully very soon we're looking at one of these taking some nice shavings.